Hello and welcome. Today we're finally going to be diving into something that I am really excited to talk about object shows. We'll discuss their beginnings, their middles, and their current state of life. While I wanted this video to be a history of sorts, I will be focusing a lot on the lost object show Total Fruit Island. At the time of recording this, which is December 9th, 2025, it has been 15 years since Total Fruit Island was released. That's 15 years of love and 15 years of loss. With that being said, I just want to give a big shout out to Mac and Cheese here on YouTube for bringing this piece of lost media to my attention and helping keep Total Fruit Island alive. As always, please leave any suggestions down below. I've had a few people come to me with suggestions, this video being one of them. Each will go through contemplation even if I don't do it right away. There's so much lost media out there and I just want to keep exploring it with you guys. This is a much longer video than I ever expected it to be, but once I started reading more and watching more about the subject, I went down a rabbit hole that has landed me here, and I'm not disappointed, so I hope y'all won't be either. Now, without further ado, let's dive on in. If you're not familiar with the topic, you're probably asking yourself, what is an object show? And that's exactly what I thought when Mac and Cheese brought it to my comment section about a month ago. I soon found out the answer was relatively simple, so let me explain. Object shows are a type of animated web series almost exclusively uploaded to YouTube. The basic premise uses objects such as fruit, office supplies, technology, or really any other basic object you can imagine. It brings them to life and has them compete in competitions, argue, form alliances, create drama, and more. Think Total Drama Island or Survivor, but if the contestants were objects instead of people. These productions are usually ran by one or two people, mostly consisting of kids and teens. Are they low budget? For the most part, but it didn't really matter. The community is still creating and growing 15 years later, and we owe their existence to a surprisingly humble start. I find it interesting how the early internet had such a big advantage over the 2000s era internet. Back then, even though it was harder to obtain, once you had it, you could do pretty much anything your heart desired, at least to a kid who didn't know what the internet would be like in 20 years. In this case, we're talking about the early days of accessible digital animation, and one of the biggest contributors to that was Macromedia, also known as Flash, and its arrival in 1992. However, the important year was 1997 with Macromedia's new edition of the program Flash. I don't think anyone needs an extensive history. If you're here, you have most likely heard of Flash, so I'm going to go ahead and take us to the year of 2005, which is the year of Macromedia Flash 8. It became one of the most important tools for creating animation and interactive content back in the mid-2000s. Now that we have the background on Flash, I have to talk about another program that was the bare bones of digital art in the early 2000s, MS Paint. I'm positive most of us here have used MS Paint at least once to draw something silly. I know back when I was a teen, my friend and I tried to draw each other and it turned out much like you expect, a conundrum of shapes and lines, which is kind of where object shows started. I don't want to bore you with too much information. I'd personally find an MS Paint history video to be rather boring. But before I get into object shows and how they relate, I want to give a little background on what got us there in the first place. PC Paintbrush was the name of Microsoft's first paint program, dating all the way back in the year of 1985. It had a rather short history compared to its Paint counterpart, lasting only 5 years until Windows 3.0 came around, introducing their new program, Paint. Since the year 1990, Paint was almost a whole generation's first dip into digital art territory. At this time, it's similar to the likes of Procreate in its abilities. Now I have one last program to talk about, and the last important one, which is also the one that really makes me appreciate the beginning of object shows, PowerPoint. It's a neat coincidence that all these programs come out at around the same time. So PowerPoint released in 1997, which is actually the later of the three. The tool slowly grew in popularity, being used in schools to do projects well into the 2000s. When 2010 came around, the internet was no stranger to the works of PowerPoint, but it wasn't until then that its usage really took off as being part of various online animations. The first that I'm aware of being Total Fruit Island, but we'll get to that. This does lead us into our topic for today, which is 2010, the year of the object show. It would be impossible to talk about object shows without mentioning Battle for Dream Island at least once, because that's where it all began. Who knows if object shows would even exist today if not for BFDI. To tell you about it, though, I have to tell you about the creators, Carrie and Michael Hong. They were twin brothers who started it all at just 13. But our story does start a little bit earlier than that with the creation of the Jack and Jilfy YouTube channel on February 4th, 2008, where the twins started out at about 11 making lesser known animations and marble races. They grew up loving reality competition shows, so naturally they wanted to make their own. And this is where we officially start talking about BFDI and its impact on the community. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to this animated show. Several seasons and spin-offs that accumulated into one big community that's been running for 15 years and counting. I'm going to break down episode 1 here because I believe that it really sets the tone for everything that comes after. Episode 1 introduces us to several competitors such as Leafy, Fiery, Bubble, Flower, Woody, and more. It sets up the premise for everything that comes after. Compete, win and earn tokens, lose, and get voted out, all to earn the prize of Dream Island.
It's bossiest. I'd do anything to get away from her. Or Flower, or Woody, or Spongy.
Well, then you're in luck.
How?
Well, everybody, they're building the island of luxury. It's called Dream Island. A whole square mile of paradise. A 5-star hotel, a casino, 6 restaurants, robot servants, and the winner even gets to decide who gets to come in and who doesn't.
So, how much will it cost?
Not even a penny.
Then I'll take it.
But what about everybody else? They wanted to, you know.
I wouldn't give up that island for anything.
Neither would they.
After a small explanation of how things work, we are met with our character's first challenge. Whoever can stay on the bar the longest wins. After some trial and error, the last two standing are Leafy and Pin. From that point on, the two pick their teams and the real battle begins.
Choose your team name. Come on, just choose. Okay, then I'll choose. Pin's team, you'll be called the Squishy Cherries.
Oh, come on.
And Leafy's team, you are the Squashy Grapes.
Even in this episode, you can see the humor and chaos that are already seeping through the linings of the show as a whole. Something I'm seeing is these kids' large vocabulary and unique animation skills. Even at such a young age, it's hard to not admire the work put in. Continuing on, once Pin and Leafy pick their teams, they're named. Pin's team is the Squishy Cherries, and Leafy's team is the Squashy Grapes. They are then told their first team challenge, making it across the Goiki Canal in a handmade boat. The losing team will be put on the chopping block on the next episode. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the narrator of the show. He's rather robotic in voice and nature, but I think it brings a special something to the show that wouldn't be there if Carrie or Michael had voiced him themselves. At the end, shenanigans ensues, and the winner is Pin's team, and they are marked safe. I think the best part about this show is the interactive nature. Each episode ends with the losing team being put on screen, and then each episode begins with one member being voted out. The audience won't know who's voted out until the next episode because they have to vote for it. I won't go any further in explaining the episodes in this video, but I highly suggest that you go check out Jack and Jilfy and give season 1 a watch. It's 3 hours long, but you won't be disappointed. It's quite a laugh even to an adult who's watching it for the first time. There are a few things that set BFDI apart from other animations at the time. Of course, the concept was unique, but the real kicker was how it was animated. In January of 2010, Macromedia Flash 8 was only 5 years old. However, that made it much more accessible to the public. So with a 1-week voting period and a 3-week animating period, the two would begin uploading episodes once a month. Episodes that ran anywhere from 6 to 14 minutes. It's important to know that Michael voiced most of the characters himself, Carrie only voicing 4 of the original characters. However, Carrie did do most of the animation, so that balanced the two out. As of today, BFDI stands as a legend, with a massive fandom and more influence than almost any other user-created animated series on YouTube. The community watched the creators grow up, as they themselves did as well. Not only that, but the shows are more elaborate now too. Carrie went on to graduate from Stanford University and receive a degree in computer science in 2020, while Michael went on to graduate from the University of California, Berkeley both still working on and helping run the saga that is BFDI. However, now there is a completely dedicated team with many animators, directors, and voice actors working on the set. The series has basically fragmented itself as a piece of YouTube history. No one could have expected what came next. Object shows quite literally blew up. New shows were popping up all the time. Shows like Inanimate Insanity, Object Overload, and Object Madness hit the scene with hundreds more that only helped the community grow in popularity. Some were fully animated, some were not fully animated. Some really were just MS Paint pictures sliding across the screen with PowerPoint. It didn't matter though, all of them added something new and exciting to an ever-growing list of object shows on YouTube. And this is where things get interesting because while the genre was expanding, much like other YouTube videos, some vanished without a trace due to being deleted or banned. Speaking of MS Paint pictures sliding across the screen at 4 frames per second, after doing the research for the video, I was inspired to make my own. For all I've talked so far, I wanted to show off exactly what I mean when I say it was accessible.
It's getting down to the final 2. I'm worried. Oh yes, I am a bowling ball. I suppose I do roll well.
Thank you for gathering here today. As you know, today is the final team challenge. That means the next challenge will be one-on-one.
We're gonna win.
Good, now, today's prize is a gold coin. Now let's head up the mountain.
We will definitely win.
We haven't won a single one so far. What makes you so sure?
I'm a clock. I'm round.
Because they won last time, the bowling team gets a head start.
No,
It's not fair.
Good, now, go ahead team. Winner.
Oh.
Done in MS Paint and edited in CapCut, as you can tell, it was accessible, but it was by no means easy. As an adult with experience in digital art, editing, and a much better version of Paint, even I had difficulties as shown by my poor execution. This also goes to show how easy these pieces are to disappear. I know I saved it like 5 times as well as backing up screenshots just in case. So if I ever deleted this video, it would never see the light of day again. And that leads us into what we came here to talk about. In 2025, Total Fruit Island sits at only remnants, but has grown such a substantial following that people like myself, who weren't aware of its existence in 2010, have grown to love it more than the original creator may have ever expected. Being released on December 8th, 2010, it's the second object show known to have ever existed, the first of course being BFDI. The wiki sums up TFI with one simple sentence. Total Fruit Island was a Microsoft Paint and PowerPoint object show created by the channel of the same name. That was almost the whole extent of knowledge before the Lost Media team picked it up and began their search. And though it still may be lost, the community has put an effort that most YouTube Lost Media normally doesn't get. Due to the name and recounts of people who've watched it, we know that the objects in the show were fruit. With extra digging, investigators soon discovered the fruits were specifically modeled after the fruity cuties that I'm showing on screen. In 2024, a supposed low-quality screenshot of the episode was found on an old computer. However, it's uncertain whether it's real or just a fan recreation, so the wiki has it labeled supposed screenshot as of right now. Some other information we know includes a few episode titles, episode 1 being called Race to Death Mountain, the second being called Stuck Between Walls, and the third episode is rumored to be titled The Cake Debate, due to the contestants having to build a cake on that episode. There's also a possible fourth episode, however, no name has resurfaced. Investigators have went down almost every path you could think of, including searching old YouTube channel backup websites, the Internet Archive, contacting people who claim to have copies, and even digging through other object show videos in order to collect references to TFI, which is how a lot of this information was uncovered. With that being said, every lead has fizzled out, but recounts from people who've watched it remain. What I and many other people in the Lost Media subreddit believe prevents this from being found is just how obscure it was when it existed. Compared to later episodes of BFDI, 40 votes is relatively low. We can only assume that most episodes had less votes, therefore they probably had less views. Regardless of how little we have, we still know enough to discuss what could be. Now, I just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to English Cream Cake. They've been one of the biggest informants for the Lost Media Wiki, have given so much of what they remember, and even made an object showing the likes of Total Fruit Island, going as far as to use the Fruity Cuties as well. I'll leave a link to that in the description. One of the things that they remember clearly are the character designs. We don't know much about their personalities, but the community still holds love for them with careful documentation of what we do know. Tomato is believed to be the host. Mandarin was said to have an exaggerated Asian accent and design, and he could have possibly also been the host according to Carrie. Then there's Starfruit, who is said to be a calm character, and then Avocado, Watermelon, and Dragon Fruit, who have all been confirmed with no defining personality details. Out of these, Dragon Fruit interests me the most due to its possible design. They would have been a contestant who was possibly shaped like a dragon, similar to the Fruity Cuties design I'm showing here. There's also Apple, Bad Apple, Banana, and Blueberry, who are suspected to have been characters, but we have no way of confirming or denying. Now, I've mentioned Carrie a couple times when talking about Total Fruit Island. That's because he himself has participated in the search, making a video called Total Fruit Island Internet Mysteries, which I'll link below. He states that during the elimination process, there would be a fruit basket where either the safe contestants or the eliminated contestants would go. He wasn't sure which, but it does add quite a lot to the lore.
Somehow related with elimination, it was either the case that everyone who was safe from elimination got to stay in the fruit basket, or when you get eliminated, you get put in the fruit basket. I don't remember which one it was. I just remember that there was a fruit basket.
The reason I've yet to talk about what each episode was like is because of how little information we have. We can assume that episode 1 had a challenge, a team pick, then a team challenge, much like episode 1 of BFDI, but there's no solid proof of anything right now. Carrie did speculate that there was an elimination in episode 1, unlike BFDI. With public evidence so scarce, all we know is that it happened. We even have links to the first 2 episodes. But as time passes, the only other physical things left are forum mentions, fan recreations, possible models, the mysterious screenshot I mentioned earlier, and memories. I want to talk about one last thing today before I end my video. There have been several different object show adjacent shows that have aired on our TVs throughout the years. A notable mention is Annoying Orange, because while it isn't exactly an object show, as it has no competitions, the basics of the show display how easy and effective the bare bones of the genre are. In this case, the fruit objects bickering and causing chaos. Another notable mention, one that's much newer, is the Cartoon Network show Rock, Paper, Scissors. Now, I can't be the judge on this one if it is or isn't an object show. I would say that that's for the fandom and only them to decide, but it has the basics, and that's what my point represents. And lastly, I know I've talked a lot about Battle for Dream Island, but I do want to reiterate that the project is still ongoing today with a much larger production than ever before. From the early days of YouTube to professional animation, object shows have captured the hearts of a whole generation by being nothing less than authentic. They're simple projects put together by children who were, and still are, just beginning to learn the basics of animation and storyboarding. As we see these shows disappear, we see whole pieces of the genre disappear with it. That's why so many people care. Something they grew up with is gone, and many will stop at nothing to get it back, so others can enjoy it once again. As I say goodbye today, I hope I reminded you just how precious early YouTube was and how far its animation has come. I want to say thank you for listening to what I have to say as always. I appreciate you joining me on our dive into object shows. Though I started out having never heard of them, I believe that the distance they've come is inspiring for anyone on YouTube, whether it be kids in 2010 or adults in 2025. I truly appreciate you taking the time to be here with me, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a comment or subscribe for more. Until next time, I hope to see you again soon.